we had a situation before the year 2000 where I was starting to get the impression that maybe we might see legalisation at some stage in my life. And myths about it damaging your mental health, etc., had been debunked. But then we see a situation in the noughties where we had reefer madness too, where we had all of these stats coming out and all of these studies telling us that cannabis gave you schizophrenia. And I went from a situation where you walked into a university and you debated this topic, and if you turned up pissed, you would have won the debate. But I discovered over time, along with the whole reefer madness too, and a bit of conservatism that crept into Irish society, with students going, I'd like to stay the same because everything seems to be going well in this country, but it did get more difficult to win that argument. Now, I'm delighted to say it has moved again in another direction. Now, it's a pity that it's moved in another direction because of stuff that's happened outside this country rather than inside this country, but so be it. But the massive change that I believe that has taken place that will influence this country in the next 10 years at the latest is what happened in Colorado and Washington State. When they went ahead with full legalization, that was a game changer. Because even though the United States of America don't officially run the world, and even though I wouldn't like them to run the world, the reality is when they sneeze, the whole world gets a bloody cold. And when they say they're going to legalize cannabis in some of their states, then the whole world, who up until this stage was whipped by the United States of America if they talked about legalization, gets a little bit of confidence. And already the dominoes are falling. The domino has fallen in Uruguay, and in April it will be game over for a prohibition of cannabis. And we now have an environment where governments all over the world are talking about this. Even people like Nigel Farage said in the last 24 hours that we should legalise all drugs. The guy who was debating against Mick Clegg said that we should legalise cannabis. So, or we should look at it, and their party is in favour of that. So you have a situation now where it is becoming all right to say that cannabis should be legalised. Now, however long it takes to happen here, who knows? But if it keeps evolving the way it is, like it is in the United States of America, and we see Alaska legalised, and we see in 2016 California going down that route, and you end up with a tipping point where the whole of the United States of America has to make that decision, you will see definitely changes all around the world. And one of the comparisons that I would use is silk stockings. Silk stockings, and when they originally came out, in this country they were seen as the lead to ruination. Women might look better. Men might want to have sex with them more often. There might be babies outside marriage, and maybe there might be a little bit of infidelity. We don't want silk stockings in this country. Filth, it leads to depravity. But guess what? They appeared on our silver screens, and they became normal. And bit by bit, my nanny and all her friends watching films, they seen them there in front of them. It became part of their culture. And they moved from a situation where they had to cover themselves up with coal bags to where they were actually able to put themselves proudly on display. And that changed because culture changed. And the reason why I use that example is because if they legalise it across the United States of America, which I believe they will, you will see a situation where the modern day equivalent of France, I don't know what it is, I imagine there's something out there, you will see a situation where they won't just be sitting in the, I think it's called the Central Park Cafe, they'll be sitting in a cannabis cafe, and they'll be smoking spliffs, and it will be a normal part of American TV. And no more than when the lesbian vet on Emmerdale Farm kissed the other woman, and my mother thought lesbians were horrible, when she seen it on telly, she went, you know, maybe that's all right. And it becomes more and more and more acceptable. And it will happen. Now, we have a decision to make in Ireland. Do we wait for it to happen, or do we take the lead? Do we act as the master, or do we act as the puppy dog that follows? Because if we act first, then we can take advantage of that. We can make money out of tourism. we can also make we can also make massive money out of taxation, and we can benefit ourselves as a country. Now, what am I doing to make that happen, or what have I done to make it happen? As I've already said, I introduced a Cannabis Regulation Bill in November. That bill was never actually voted on. Some people think it was, because the way it was reported in the paper, but actually what was voted on was a motion. It still lies there at stage 1 in the Dáil to be taken by anyone and to be debated by anyone in the future. Now, as Mark probably alluded to there, I am running in the European elections on May the 23rd, and if I get elected, I will no longer be in Dáil area. So what will happen with that bill? I am talking to a couple of other TDs who wouldn't want to be genius to work out who they are, and if I'm not in the Dáil, we will have it in a Friday lottery and will be debated and voted on anyways, regardless of whether I'm there or not. In the Shannon, we are in talks with the Senator who would have dealt with this at this stage, but they're not particularly well at the moment, and hopefully that problem will be sorted out, and we will try and get it debated in the Shannon. And when it does happen in the Shannon, hopefully it does, I think we will see, even though I wanted to see the Shannon got rid of it because of the way people are elected to it, but with the composition of people who are in the Shannon, I think we'll get a far more enlightened debate. And hopefully we can try and coordinate that debate with the debate that's going on in the United States of America and what's happening in Alaska, and maybe try and create a bit of a buzz around this like was created last November. Now, I have been criticised by people for why you go around for the European Parliament, who will deal with the whole cannabis issue. Now, contrary to what people might say about me, cannabis is not the be-all and end-all in my life. It is not the number 1 issue, it's not the number 100 issue, it is one of many issues that I deal with. Initially, when I ran for election, I ran on issues to do with rights for tenants, rights for people who are on social welfare, debt write-down for the third world. Cannabis was one of them. And the media took up the issue of cannabis, and they said it was the only issue I spoke about. And then they complained and said it was the only issue I spoke about, even though that's the only issue they spoke about that I spoke about in the Parliament. So there are more things that interest me and more things that concern me. And while cannabis legalisation is massively important, there is something more important, and that is the ability of Ireland as a country to stand on its own 2 feet, and the ability of people to have a say over what happens in their own lives. I am not a nationalist, I'm actually a localist. I want power close to the people. So I have a decision, and I have a decision to make. Will I give up on the potential opportunity to have cannabis legalised through the Dáil and run in the European election on a variety of issues that to me are even bigger ultimately? And I have decided to run for Europe, and hopefully the people I have mentioned will do a good job in taking up the battle and carry on some of the work that I have done. And there is a massive positive out of that as well, because you need more people than Luke Ming Flanagan talking about the legalisation of cannabis. Not because of the way I look, and not the way because of sometimes the way I sound or anything like that, but we need to broaden the debate, and we need more people to come on board. But ultimately, we need to see this happen. We need to see it happen, because if we don't see it happen, we are going to continue with a situation where people will be criminalised for doing something that is relatively harmless. We will continue the situation where drugs such as cannabis are sold out of the same packet or by the same vendor or out of the same pocket as heroin and other far more harmful drugs. And all you have to do is look at the experience in the Netherlands, where, according to the Trimbos Institute, a psychiatric think tank, less than 1 in 1,000 Dutch teenagers experiment with heroin. The figure for Ireland is far, far greater. And from the point of view of parents worrying about their children, and what is the solution to this whole drugs issue? When we were going around with square wheels, and someone pointed out what was happening in Egypt with round wheels, we didn't go, don't trust them, because they don't make a nice banging noise that we're used to every 6 foot. we actually